how you are creating content in such a way that actually helping you to generate this much of revenue, because the big problem of market is making money. Even like suppose somebody is creating hell lot of content, they are not able to generate a cash flow in their business.
There's two ways to give yourself a raise. You can either go earn more money, get a better job, all that stuff, or you can go somewhere where your money's remote and it works harder for you.
How actually you balance the creativity and strategy in a video ads to ensure that this is going to be resonate with the target audience while also driving conversion?
Get a skill that people need if you don't already have one. And if you don't already have the skill, get the skill while getting proof. That's the biggest thing that people miss out, is they skip that.
Solve a problem of people and make tons of money. If you can solve any kind of problem, you don't have the problem of money for yourself. Hey everyone, welcome to the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show. I'm your host Nilesh Jain, and on this Entrepreneur Warrior Show, we interview warriors who are warrior not in battleground, but they are warrior in real life, in entrepreneurship. So that's where the Entrepreneur Warrior. So today we have one of the incredible guests with us. He is super awesome. And while I'm reading about him, studying about him, I love his profile. I love his content. So he's a marketer. He's helping people to make money with funny ads. That's quite interesting. And he is a 2 Club award winner. And he helped a lot of top entrepreneurs out there in the industry. A lot of 2 Club winner, a lot of big names. He helped with his stuff. And he started his new school community as well and serving a lot of people there. So without further ado, I am inviting today's special guest, Tom, on the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show. Hi, Tom. It's
Hello.
really amazing to have you.
How you doing?
I'm
Thanks
doing
for having
amazing. Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to host you. Super. When I'm reading about you, you mentioned like you are a songwriter. In your
Yes.
high school, you love music. I also love music, by the way, if you don't know. So we have a very great vibe, I think. I love
Yeah.
music. So, and I tried in singing as well. So you are in music industry, then right now you are into marketing, you are into funnel ads. So how this transition happened from a musician to making Facebook ads to creating communities? How this is happened? What is your backstory? I would love to hear that one thing.
So that's a great question. We're gonna have to go way back in the beginning for that.
Yeah.
So I was 9 years old and my mom just started dating my stepdad, and he picks me up one day in his beat up pickup truck, covered in spackle. He does drywall, and he's picking me up because we're meeting my mom somewhere after work or something. And I get in his truck and he's like, "Do you like music?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes my mom listens to some music." And he's like, "Do you like guitars?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, my mom listens to like Atlantis Morissette and Jewel." And he's like, "Those aren't guitars. I mean real guitars." And he pushes in a cassette tape and it's Metallica, Ride the Lightning. And I hear Fade to Black for the first time, and my little 9-year-old brain exploded. And I was like, I have to make that sound. So he got me into guitar. I started playing guitar for years. Then, in high school, I was like, well, it's my dream to become a musician. So I started learning to play other instruments, drums, a little bit of piano, stuff like that. You mentioned singing, which you're into, which is cool. That was the hardest thing for me to learn because I had the worst natural voice ever. And when I was about 20, 22, something like that, I got sick of dealing with singers and bands. So I said, I'm going to learn how to sing. And that was the most difficult thing still to this day. I think I've ever done.
It is. I can feel it.
Yeah. And some people are just born with it and everyone can learn it. But that was the hardest I think I ever worked at something. So anyway, so my goal was to be a rock star. And I had really recognized very young that the operative word in music industry is industry. Like, it's a business. There's a reason why Metallica stuck around after the 80s when most other 80s bands withered away. And it's because of their marketing. They were just good at marketing. So when I was in bands, I would always tell my bandmates, like, guys, we have to be great at marketing. And I took my one band on MySpace way back in the day to over 2 million streams in under a year. And that was before paid ads ever existed. And we couldn't tour because I had a full-time job. So it was just hand-to-hand combat, connecting with people on the internet and hoping that they'll listen to your music. That's one, I think, important thing that people tend to miss these days in marketing, is not going for the kill. Everyone that I ever connected with on MySpace, I never asked them to listen to my music until maybe third or fourth conversation. I'd be like, hey, by any
Yeah,
chance,
that's true.
check it
That's
out.
true.
And by that point, they've checked out your profile enough that they were going to naturally land there if they would. So, um, with that being said, once I didn't make it as a rock star, I was like, well, I will be a studio guy. So I'm big into recording. At least I was. So I started working at recording studios and recording bands and artists. And part of that is to market that as a business to attract clients. But the money is terrible in recording, and you're
Okay.
always taking that musician's last $1,000 for that
Mm.
recording. And the
Okay. So,
first, yeah. So, all right. So I guess what year am I around now? All right. So about 2016, I decided I read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and
ah, so,
me and my now fiance girlfriend at the time, us and our two cats just left. We moved to Thailand. We were like, let's move to Thailand. We're working way too hard here. And when he said that, that one line in there just really got me, when he said, like, there's two ways to give yourself a raise. You can either go earn more money, get a better job, all that stuff, or you can go somewhere where your money's remote and it works harder for you. And
mm,
when I started looking into Thailand, I was like, oh, we can go and we can live off of less money and then use that time to invest into learning more. And
mm.
that's when I like went over there. I must have read Expert Secrets like 15 times in a row when I got out to Thailand.
Best ever book. One of the best ever book. It's near to me. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. One of the
Yes.
best. So I threw myself into education,
Mm,
and it was a struggle. For a few years, we barely made maybe $500 a month. Some months 1,000. Um, when I finally started to crack that code, that's when we started to get the recurring $1,000 a month clients and things like that. But I built my first website for a client who knew me for a while, and he wanted a website. And when it came time to give him the price, I was like, well, I never built a website for anyone else before. I only built it for my own stuff. So $6,307. I just pulled a number out of my ass. And he was like, cool. And it only took me 10 hours. And my friends who were in web development were like, oh my God, you ripped him off. Like, how could you do that? Like, you don't even know coding. And I'm like, well, no one's right clicked the website and ever said view source code. And then went, wow, I should really buy this product. Like, the source code looks great. No one cares about coding. Like, and he was in the real estate world. So he made a ton of money off the website that I built him because he took it online, and it saved him a ton of time operationally, because at the time he was going and meeting people and doing things by hand, like with paper. So even just giving him form functionality was worth the money to him. So that was my first lesson of like, holy crap, you can make way more money when you just solve someone's problem who has money, and they make more
mm,
money as a result of you solving it, or they save more time, and their
yeah.
time is worth way more money than, you know, the musician that I'm trying to record for a couple $100.
Mm,
So
mm,
um yeah, so that's kind of my whole part leading into that. And then from there, it just scaling, being a one-man agency, and learning SEO and Facebook ads, and we did Google ads, YouTube, we did social media content for people, just all the usual suspects of doing like agency work. I kind of did that as a one-man show for a while until finally won the 2 Comma Club award. And then from there,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was bittersweet because I won it while I was in Thailand, and I wanted to
Mm,
go get the award, but then COVID lockdowns happened. So I couldn't
but,
actually go meet Russell for 2 years
yeah. Yeah.
because Thailand was locked down.
Yes.
Um, but then I read this one. I'm sure we all
Yeah.
have.
100 million offers.
And I created my first Grand Slam offer for realtors, and it was a $30,000 offer
Mm,
where I built out their marketing machine for them and supported them for a year. And I
mm,
sold a bunch of those until the industry kind of had a bad downturn, rates were bad and stuff like that. And I realized that I just really don't like working with realtors. I 90% of realtors I just can't stand. So I ended up getting out of that business. And when I came to finally accept my 2CC award that year, Christine Morel was speaking, and she spoke about doing funny ads and doing comedy to grow your brand. And usually that's the thing that I like wasn't as active or outspoken about in my
Hmm.
business, because I mean, I love comedy. I'd like to think I'm funny. I grew up in the Northeast where our attitude is, Jersey, New York attitude. Um,
Okay.
so I like wrote a bunch of notes, and when I joined her challenge, I ended up doing like my first funny ad in there. And she calls me, she gets on the phone with me, and she's like, "You're really, really good at this, and you should go do this for other people and make money. Like, I make a lot of money doing this." And she like gave me the playbook. She's like, "Here's how you're going to do it, and this, and that." So that was really cool, because usually competitors don't, or usually people who are in
They
an
don't do
industry
it.
don't know, hey, let me create a competitor, right? Like, she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, don't worry about it. There's plenty to go around." So that was really cool.
Hmm.
And then once I did a funny ad in her challenge, other people started coming to me, and then before I knew it, I closed like a ton of work doing the funny ad stuff. So that's how I landed there.
That's interesting, man. Quite interesting, and I love your journey. That when you don't have money and you are keep going on at that point of time, you are just pushing hard yourself, and then you figure out that there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it, and that one thing that you figure out is solve a people of problem of people and make tons of money. That's
Yep.
the only thing. If you can solve any words, any kind of problem, you don't have the problem of money for yourself.
Yep. And you
That's
just
a
you
beautiful
have to
thing.
communicate it in a way that
Yeah.
makes sense to them. Too
Yeah.
many people, especially in this industry, um, just speak in their language, not the client's language. And I probably liken that to the same thing. I've been in recording sessions with other engineers where they want to talk about the compressor setting and the microphone. And I, don't get me wrong, I'm a gearhead. I love talking about that stuff. But the client who hired you to record their song, they don't give a crap about your microphone or your compressor. That's not their
Yeah,
world.
they are not interested.
Yeah. So
They
same
are
thing
not.
in this world, especially like SEO guys. When I see like the SEO guys try to sell um, SEO to clients, anytime I sold SEO packages to clients, um, it's always been really funny to see, like, sometimes they'll be like, "Hey, this other person pitched me. Here's their,
Hmm.
proposal or something." And you
Yeah.
just read it and it's like, "Oh my God, you're just overwhelming someone with jargon that they just do not understand or care about." So
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Loved it. Loved it. That's a very much interesting point. And while we are discussing about your thing, so you mentioned like you got an idea from Funnel Hacking Live that there is a way to make humor video advertisement. So how important is a humor video advertising, and what are the key elements that make an ad genuinely funny and engaging? Like suppose if I'm creating an ad for my podcast done for you service podcast coaching, how I make it really funny, like if we can go with this example, or even if you have something to share, whatever. But what I what kind of, because humor is something very hard to deliver
yeah.
in reality. You cannot be a comedian just by coming up reading some comedy dialogues. You have to have it come it you definitely have to get it from inside. How
Mhm.
did we can do this? How did the people who is watching this podcast right now, listening this podcast, can do this?
Okay, so that's a great question. Um, I love that question. So there's a lot to it. So I'll try to break it down in a couple different sections. So the first thing to understand is that if you are not funny at all, I don't actually believe that you can be funny without somebody helping you or telling you what to say, or teaching you how to deliver or something like that. I think that you have to be at least a little bit funny, because I've been on sets with people who are so dry where they just have no sense of humor. So they need to hire me because I need to write the joke and I need to tell them how to deliver it and stuff like that. Comedy is a lot like music in two ways. Number one, there's different tastes for everything. Some people really like clean, squeaky clean comedy, like,
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld and stuff like that. And I'm a big Seinfeld fan. And other people like really crass humor, like George Carlin and Anthony Jeselnik, and I like them too.
Yes,
So
yeah,
it just depends on, like, you have to understand that everyone's tastes are different. So you're never going to be funny to everyone. It will never happen. So just throw that part out of your mind. Um, and then also, like a song, it has to have proper pacing and timing. The chorus has to hit in the right way. It's got to build dynamic. It's got to, I like to think of it like all right. So if you were listening to a drum pattern in a song, you would hear a beat. You'd hear boom, bat,
yeah,
boom, boom, bat, boom.
yeah,
Keep going,
yeah,
boom, boom, bat. Really normal, standard, and then boom, boom, like a little
yeah,
fill, right?
yeah,
Something interesting.
yes,
To me, the pacing in a song is very similar to the pacing in comedy. You have to set it up, deliver some info, deliver something useful, maybe show some proof that your product's working, and it has to naturally build to this point where then boom, you hit them with the joke, and then you do it again, and then boom, you hit them with the joke. You can't just go out there and be like punchline, 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 because number one, you tell them nothing about your product when you do that, and number two, it just doesn't hit the pacing right. Harmon Brothers are a great example of people's ads to watch. Um, but as far as like that goes, like with the pacing and things. Now, the next thing is about understanding what is and is not off limits. And not necessarily off limits. I mean, I don't think anything should necessarily be off limits with comedy, but that's my personal opinion. Just, I think intent is what makes jokes, not necessarily the words you say. But with that being said, not everybody feels that same way. So what you need to do is you need to deliver it in a way that, especially if you're making fun of your audience, because what we're doing is we're selling a solution to pain. So we have to make fun of their pain. So what you need to do in order to take that style is exaggerate the pain enough so that it's so over the top funny. Like, let's say if you're selling podcast services, right? So you're doing done for you podcast services. So there's two pain points that people who have podcasts have.
yeah,
And I'd probably say three. The first is they're not getting any customers, so they're not making any money. That's the obvious one.
mm,
No audience would be the second one, just
yeah,
no audience. So I'd probably say it this way: no monetization, because they haven't figured out how to make money with their podcast yet. They have no audience, and it takes too much friggin' time. So those are the three pain points that you could find a way, to scale or to create jokes in. So, for example, let's say there's no monetization path. You could do, let's see, what's the pain point there? So with no monetization, there's no ability to make money from the podcast. So why are you even doing it?
yeah,
So maybe you do a skit around like the judgmental father, like you're meeting the your girlfriend's judgmental father, and he's like, so what do you do? You're like, oh, I do podcasts. What's that? It's like a radio show, but like for business owners. Oh, so like so you're in business. Yeah. So, oh, so how do you make money? Oh, my podcast. So do you make money with your podcast? And then it's just awkward because they're like, maybe they like pull out their Libsyn account or, whatever and it shows like, 2 cents and whatever. I don't know what the AdSense version of podcasts are, but they can
yeah,
just be like, no, it's just like, you're a loser or something. Like, that's funny. I mean, I flush it out more to make it a little bit more funny, but it's more, we've taken something and showed a premise to where it's not as painful as just like, hey, you don't make money with your podcast, you're an idiot, you suck. By introducing the character who, the more they make fun of that person, the more it's funny, because we've all been in that situation, either as a woman knowing that your dad is judging the boyfriend, or as the boyfriend knowing that you're trying to impress the dad. We've all connected with that situation. So by building in the premise, it makes it a little bit more funny. And then specifically the no audience thing, like I have an ad idea that I'm going to be doing about helping people to fill their webinars and their challenges and stuff like that.
okay,
This
super,
would
yeah,
work in the same
mm,
regard to you. I picture walking out on a stage and just like preparing backstage, like you show like, someone backstage just jumping up and down, like doing all their regiment stuff, the the prayer, the kneel down, the jump up and down, the little shadow boxing, like just like gonna go out there, big build up music, and they go out on the stage and they go like this, and the curtain opens, and then it flips to the wide shot and no one's there, and they're like, hello? And then it's like, are people not showing up to your webinar, people not showing up to your podcast? Like, now we've made fun of the fact that they have no audience, but we did it in a way that's silly. So
Wow,
it's about putting the knife in and twisting it, but not in a way that's offensive, in a way that makes them laugh at themselves. They
that's
go, oh,
crazy.
that's funny. So, and then
That's
it just depends. Like, there's jokes that we've done. I mean, I'm always going to push the envelope. I love offensive humor. So I've said jokes on set, and typically my sales calls with people when they want funny ads is hilarious, because I just go, look, you have the final say. Just know that, like, I'm going to say some crazy shit during this call. We're going to write down all of it. We might have 50 ideas by the end. There will be some where you're going to be like, there's no way I'm doing that. And depending on how good of an idea I think it is, we'll debate it and try to figure out if it's in alignment with your brand and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a fun business doing that stuff for sure.
super interesting, man. Loved it. Loved the point out that you have. Firstly, you mentioned like there's a two type of jokes. Number one is which is clean, and second is where there's a kind of adult thing you can add on to make it more humor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So people can relate even in our country as well, like in our native language we have both kind of jokes. People relate with the clean jokes, people relate with the adult jokes, like some adult word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the resonation happened, and then you are like, okay, you have a problem, but you are showing that one problem in a funny way, so they are feeling awkward. Why I'm not getting this kind of result after doing this kind of thing? So they are feeling like, okay, I have to work with this guy because this guy is actually talking my reality in a funny way,
Yeah.
in a funny way.
And then you
He's
still have to
quite,
stack the important components of ads and
yeah,
copywriting. You still have to
yeah,
put your proof in there. You still have to put
yes,
your pain points and your solutions
mm,
and stuff like
mm,
that. The
yeah,
humor is just a way to get the attention. It's a way to keep the eyeball. Like, grab the eyeball, keep the eyeball enough to sell the product, and then you push them in to your
yes,
funnel, and then you convert them. So it's a great way to do it, especially
mm,
if you make something that is shareable,
yeah,
because when people share ads, it's a powerful thing because that reduces ad spend like a ton. And then you have this like hybrid of an organic viral thing, plus you're
yeah.
putting ad spend to it. So it just like, your cost per conversion just goes down. So,
Right. I remember one of the ad by that one guy. I forgot his name. Very famous. I really forgot his name. So it was in my Grant Cardone. Yeah, Grant
okay.
Cardone. One of the ad was very funny, and I myself shared that one ad with at least to 10, 50, 10, 20, 30, whatever the number of people are. But I myself shared that one ad by this number of people because I found that one ad really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. He tests a lot of stuff. I heard one thing that I heard that I just like
Yeah,
have thought about so much because it just sometimes a joke just sticks in your head. Um,
yeah,
and he was talking about what was it? It was in one of his coaching programs. God, I can't
okay,
remember the name, but he was talking about how he takes his media team and goes, "Okay, look, we're dominating Facebook ads, we're doing Google ads, we're doing YouTube. Go find me the every other ad market. I don't care what it is, and everything from park benches to websites, and put it in a folder and show me the average cost and the amount of impressions and traffic volume and everything." And there was a folder on there that said porn, like Pornhub or something like that. And he was like, hold on, what's that folder? Because he saw the numbers. And they're like, oh, no, we don't want to advertise there. It's the porn websites. And he's like, well, how much is the cost per click? And they're like, really low. And he's like, yeah, but like, you don't want to advertise there. That's not where marketers go to advertise. He's like, yeah, right. So he goes, I'm going to do an ad. And I don't know if he ever did it, but he goes where, pops up and he goes, all right, listen, I know what you're about to do and I don't want to interrupt you. But
that's crazy.
when you're done and you want
Yeah.
to learn how to be successful and make money, just click this link in the next window. You can visit it once you're through.
Mm.
It's like, oh my God, that's so funny and so creative.
Uh,
Um, but it's just like trying to exploit the opportunity, but also using the humor, right? Just being funny and creative enough to see the
Yeah,
opportunity
the
in that.
game is to be creative and getting the attention of the
Yeah.
people, getting the attention with the right intention.
Yes. That's it. You nailed it right there.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it doesn't make sense at all. So, how do you balance that creativity and strategy? We just discussed about like importance of having humor, how we can create the humors, but how actually you balance the creativity and strategy in a video ads to ensure that this is going to be resonate with the target audience while also driving conversion? Because
Mhm.
what we discuss is like with the intention, with right intention. So how, while you are writing your ad, how long like for, it's going to be 1 minute, 2 minute, or what kind of a script you are going to use, like you are starting with some funny things, as we discussed so many things in our last discussion as well, but there's a lot to discuss about creativity, strategy, strategizing the
Mhm.
ads in a funny way. So how you are planning that out? Like, is there you have any kind of framework, like one framework is like who, what, why, how, is
Yes.
by Russell Brunson. So you also have kind of thing.
So for the funny ads, I don't really have a framework.
Okay.
For my short form content and stuff that's like designed to convert people into customers, yeah, I have a framework for that. But
Wow.
for me, the funny ads thing is it's it's like a song, and you can't tell a song how long it should be. Like the Beatles wrote
Wow.
2 minute songs, and Pink
Yes.
Floyd wrote "Shine on You Crazy Diamond," which is like 28 minutes long, and I always say it would be such a mistake if Pink Floyd was like, well, the Beatles were successful writing 2 minute songs, so we should too.
Mm, mm,
So it really just depends on the song. It depends on the ad. It depends on how much you can use attention. And for me, I'll script a lot, and I'll
mm,
take a ton of jokes and try to get the pacing right and throw it in a blender. And then when I get to the editing table, that's when I really sit down and go like, okay, what did this do? Did this work? Did this not work? Do we need a joke here? And it's definitely more of an art than like a science following the framework. But the important things to get in there are the same things that you want to get in your ads when you're just doing good copy. Like you want to show proof that the thing works. You want to show um, the who, like, which I feel like we do with the premise. I always want to call the people out in the beginning, because if you don't call them out, um, it's very hard for the algorithm to get the target right. So I just like to immediately say it in the beginning, no matter what the product is. So it really, you want to do that balance, but also sometimes a product is so wide that you don't even need to say anything about that stuff. You let the funnel do that part. You just need to get
mm.
the curiosity. So it really just depends on the product. But for me, like if I was selling a coaching product or an info product or something like that, um, like here's something that I'm working on now. Just a segue. I'm actually in the process of launching my very first school community called Content to Conversions, where
Yeah.
when I looked
Super.
at all of my stuff, I
Mm,
realized that all of my clients came from the back of consuming a piece of content from me, and I don't even have a huge following at all. Like I have less than 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I still
mm.
close 5-figure deals. And the
Wow.
thing they all have in common is that the conversations I have with these people have consumed some kind of piece of content from me beforehand, whether it's a podcast, a short form video, a VSL, or even a book. So once I realized that, I was like, oh crap, like I can actually teach people content, because I didn't want to, because I'm like, well, I don't have 1 million followers, and my goal isn't to go viral. So I want to teach service providers how to use content in that way. So the reason why I bring that up is because if I was going to make a funny ad about that, then I need to like showcase everything that I just said in a way that's funny, because nobody really clicks curiosity for info products. But if I
Yeah.
was selling, say, I don't know, I'm sure I got something around here. I don't know, a watch, right? If I'm selling a watch,
Yeah.
then I could probably not talk about all of the features of the watch or all of the identity that goes into it. I can just make something funny out of it. I'd probably do the Pulp Fiction scene that Christopher Walken does, if you've ever seen the movie. but he talks about his grandfather smuggled the watch in his ass out of World War II. Like I'd
Oh,
probably do a parody on something like that, and then be like, well, what kind of watch is it? Like take a famous scene, right? So like I don't have to say anything about the watch at that point. I just have to hope that people who've seen Pulp Fiction think that scene's funny, maybe have a chuckle and then buy that watch. So something like that. So it really just it depends, I think, is the answer, which kind of sucks sometimes. The
okay.
overwhelming decisions, and usually people just want to know like what's the answer. Well, the answer is your ad has to be 3 minutes and 42 seconds,
Yeah. Okay.
not a second over, and you've got to say this and that, when it really just depends on the product and the funnel
Yeah.
industry, all that stuff. So
That's very much important. That's very much important. Like, if you are going to sell a crap in the market, and you are going to feel like, okay, I am going to run ad of, I'm going to put in this much budget and I'm going to run ad. It's not going to work. It's not going to give you result, because this product is not something that is not required in the marketplace. That product
yeah,
is not something, not going to fulfill any kind of problem of market, not going to give you conversion. But that's love thing. But while we are discussing about your school community, and then you are coming to the point of content to conversion,
hmm
you mentioned about like, uh, just out of 2000 people on your Instagram, you have generated 5 figures of revenue for
yeah.
your product. So please go on and talk about this thing, like how you are creating content in such a way that actually helping you to generate this much of revenue. Because the big problem of market is making money. Even like, suppose somebody is creating hell lot of content, they are not able to generate a revenue for their business, they are not able to generate a cash flow in their business. So what is something you tweak in your content that helps you to generate this much of revenue?
Absolutely. So I'll go into the framework, and um,
Yep.
I'll give you the goal of the framework at the end, for sure. But I do want to preface this
Yes.
by building like the story of, because most people are probably wondering, well, how are you closing 5-figure deals with little followers, right? Like not a lot of following. So um, when I looked back at all of my like biggest deals that I've closed, so the first one I did was a $10,000 ghostwriting project. I wrote a book in the recording world. I used my very first online business was Digital Recording School, where I taught recording engineers how to be better, engineers and producers. And there was a guy who was really big in the industry, read my book, and sent me an email like literally the next day. I read your book. It popped up on my Amazon. I absolutely love it. Can we talk? I was like, oh my God, like sure. So he ends up paying me 10 grand to write his book. And at that point, I had no audience because I wrote that book. Like, again, the next day he emailed me. So there was no audience.
When did it happen?
2017.
Oh, cool.
So then later on that year, 2017, I went on Facebook Live in a pop music group, and I was in the pool in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Um, and I was just talking about just sharing some advice that I had from being a musician. And I was like, hey guys, like, I got this thing called Digital Recording School, but this isn't about that. Just trying to practice being on camera. So I figured I'd just share some stuff about being a musician and some things that I've learned over the years. This guy, Ned, sees it, and he loves it. And he messages me and he's like, I really, really enjoyed that video. Like, can we talk? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm really busy right now, like maybe in like 3 weeks, something like that. Like I've got this big project I'm doing. And he's like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I want to pay you to talk to you. Like, I'll give you $500 to talk to me for 5 phone calls, an hour a piece. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So him and I started talking. And then we were supposed to do some work with him because he managed bands like on the side, but he was a financial planner. So I started doing some marketing for him as a financial planner, and then COVID hit and he was selling to teachers. That was his niche. So like schools were closed. So there was no way for him to make money. So we just ended up kind of not working together after that. But we still remained friends. So anyway, I could skip all the me and that stuff. So what ends up happening is I do a reel where I talk about this concert that me and Ned went to, and I sent it to him, and he goes, "Oh man, I really like that. I want to do content like that. Can you send me some more?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I sent him a couple more reels that I did, like talking head stuff. And he was like, "All right, I think it's time that we work together. Like, again, can we get on a phone call?" So that one I ended up closing for a revenue share plus 20 grand to build everything out. And that came off the back of a reel. And then my $30,000 real estate offer, I had no audience of realtors because I've been a musician my whole life and I don't really hang out with realtors because, again, they're awful people. Only 90% of them. I've got some great realtor friends. But so I was like, well, I'm just going to make an ad to a VSL, 10-minute VSL, and no bullshit VSL, no perfect webinar, no song and dance with the whole thing. Not saying I don't like that stuff. I obviously do. I'm a student of it, but I just went, I'm going to make a no nonsense webinar. Just like, hey, realtors, here's what you're doing. Here's what you're paying for leads. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how I can fix it. Here's why I know what I'm talking about. Here's proof that I know what I'm talking about. Book a call, talk to me. Let me know. So it's just a really straightforward. Ran one ad with that and then closed a $30,000 deal off of that one. And a couple of them. Off of, what was my ad spend there? It was pretty awesome. It was like $3,800 in ad spend, and I think I did 78 grand in like 4 weeks or something like that of just booking calls. And the calls were right before Christmas too, where like no one really makes sales. So I know if I would have ran it, later, it would have been great. But yeah, so that was pretty cool because, especially with the 30K deals, because I would build it. I would go, well, I only need a few to like be a king in Thailand, because we lived in a 4,800 square foot mansion or something like that with a pool, a private pool, hot tub, and all that. And it was $1,100 a month. So like I didn't need a lot of money to live really well out there. So I sold a few and then was like, well, that's cool. Now I'm just going to enjoy my life and kick my feet up. And I almost semi-retired for like a year, which is double-edged. It's a mistake because I could have made way more money, but also it was awesome because I didn't have to do anything. So yeah, so all that to say that all of the stuff that I got came off the back of a conversation that happened after someone consuming a piece of content. In the first story, it was a guy who read an ebook. In the second story, it was a guy who watched a Facebook Live and a reel. And in the third story, it was somebody who watched a 2-minute ad into a 10-minute VSL. And that's all it took. But in all three of those cases, the thing that happened was I set the stage for conversations. And once we get on the phone, then I say the right things to them in order to actually close the deals. So
yeah, that's how it works. So number one, you publish something, you have your book, you get a lead. Second, you went to the Facebook Live, you discuss something, you share that this is something I am working on, this is what I have done, and you got another deal. And that's incredible what you have shared, because what is biggest thing from all of the things you have shared is you have taken a massive imperfect action. You didn't think like, okay, I don't know this one thing, so that's the reason I'm not going to take initiative on this one thing. You take an initiative first, and then you feel like, okay, let me go and figure it out by myself.
And it took me 5 years to get there, man. Like, I have this hard drive, right?
Yeah.
This is all of the songs that I've written since like 2007 that you can buy in stores nowhere, because I never released any of my solo music because it wasn't ready. The mix needed to be perfect. And I keep this giant brick on my desk to remind me, hey, suck less in life. just put yourself out there, do things, and finish what you start and stuff like that. But it took years of frustration to finally get there, because I've definitely suffered from that perfectionism thing that you're talking about for sure. Oh, you know what? I don't want to forget, because I said I'll give you the framework for the content.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm going to forget that. So
the
framework that I use in all of my content, all of my short form content, stuff like that, is you want a hook, which we all know. Hook, give them a visual hook, a reason to pay attention. Hook can be a joke, something like that. Just get their attention with a hook. And I'm sure I don't need to go into all the psychology of hooks. Probably most people watch this are marketers. We know hooks.
Perfect, right.
The next is a reason why they want to watch, or a reason to stick around to the end. So they say, in this video, you're going to learn this. Or I'll say, and I'm going to give you 7 tips, and the 5th one is the most important. Something like that, right? Give them a reason to increase that watch time. And you can get all that done within like 6 to 8 seconds. So that should not be the bulk of your video. It should just be get them in and make sure they stay. So the next thing is that you want to do your story or your info. Now, usually I like to use stories to deliver information because it humanizes information, makes it relatable. Um, so yeah, using stories in your to humanize information is the best way to get someone to absorb something because it makes it what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just relatable. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So you want to do your stories and your info. So you got your hook, you've got your reason, then you do your story / your info. That's the meat of your entire video. That's the one thing that you want them to absorb and figure out what that idea is. Then the next is a principle, which is just a bite-size, very catchy way to, hear or for them to absorb your idea.
Yeah.
Now what I do is I give them an analogy. And what an analogy does is it gives them a parallel of something they have to agree with. So it attaches to the principle and the idea, and it just solidifies the belief that what you just said was true. And by the way, the reason why is because of this. And then lastly is your call to action. So
All
like
good.
I'll do one for you right now on we'll say funny ads, right? So the hook would be hold on, I forget the number. I think it was 7 million. This number could be wrong, so don't fact check me.
Yeah.
If you had $7 million to spend for 30 seconds, what would you do? Well, one of the biggest companies in the world did this, or what one of the biggest companies in the world did with $7 million will surprise you. Stick around to the last point because it's going to change your business. Got your attention, right? You're like, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
Now the story. Have you ever watched the Super Bowl in the NFL? Every year, two teams get together, and the two best teams in the NFL go and compete for who wins the championship. And pretty much everybody in America watches this event. The interesting thing, if you've ever been to a Super Bowl party, is that half of the people there don't care about football, but they still show up, and it's not just for the beer and the food. What you'll always hear people say is that I love watching the Super Bowl for the commercials. They all watch the ads. Now, the thing about the ads is that 90% of them are funny because humor converts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they spend, $7 million for a 30-second slot. And what they choose to do with that 30-second isn't talk about their company culture. It's not talk about who their target audience is. It's not, on any of the other marketing stuff that we usually say. Their only goal is to make people laugh and then make them curious because that's all they can do in 30 seconds. Now, the principle here is that funny ads convert and create more attention and more customers, something like that.
Yes.
Now, the analogy here that I would say is it's kind of like when you check out what people watch on TV. When you look at the analytics, more people watch reality TV than they do the History Channel because people want to be entertained more than they want to be informed. So that's probably like another little extra principle, but that's the analogy. So, by the way, if you want a funny ad, do me a favor, click the link below and we could schedule a call with our team, blah, blah, blah. So what I've done there is I set the premise, I gave them a hook, I gave them curiosity. How would you spend $7 million? Actually, a better hook would probably be like, let me tell you how you could blow $7 million in 30 seconds. Stick around for the last point. It's going to change your business forever. Story about the Super Bowl, and the idea is that I want them to absorb the fact that funny ads work. Then the principle is what I said about funny ads. I don't remember what I said, but something about just like how they work. And then the analogy is, by the way, this works in TV too. Look at more people want to watch the Kardashians and they want to watch, the History Channel. So people don't want to be informed. They want to be entertained. Call to action, book the call. Now, whether I do that in a short form piece of content, I could do that in a long form video. I could just stack it with more data about the NFL, and I could probably even put some jokes in there or something like that. Maybe show, I don't know, a little kid in like a football helmet, and then all of a sudden a big linebacker wearing Coca-Cola just tackles them, like that would make people laugh, right? Just pushes them off screen.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
but the point is that I can use that framework in any piece of content. I can use it in VSLs,
Mm,
use it in long form content. I could use it in a podcast. Um, all it does is just you extend it. You just extend your stories, and you give more proof, and you give more analogies, and you give more principles and stuff like that. So that's kind of my framework with content. And then once you do that, when people book the call, like they're either going to go to my Funny Ads and Funnels website and see my examples and go, I want to hire them. But the whole point of creating content that does this thing that I'm talking about, which is just convincing people that you're an authority and getting them to adopt new ideas, is when they get on the call, it's so much easier to sell them because you're not really selling them. Like you're not convincing them. You're just getting to know them and making sure that they want to work with you. So it makes it so much easier. And that's why I believe that this type of content is so much more valuable than like viral chasing. And I am going to try to go viral. I'm going to do some stuff that I'm sure I'm going to hate, just to try to get those numbers. But most people are trying to figure out how to do like the next trending dance, or what Drake song can I put in my reel in order to get more eyeballs on it. And it's like, if you just say the right shit to the right people, they will buy from you, period. So just do that. Focus your time on that. Don't worry about like doing all this other over the top stuff like fake
yeah.
prank videos or something like that. So
That's not going to. You are going to get. I also have the analogy of this viral content is like, I don't know whether it's right, wrong, but viral content is getting viral for just 1 week, or people, it is going to be viral for just 1 week or less than a week, and people is remember this viral content for that week time only. They are not remember after a year as well.
yeah.
If suppose I ask you which is the viral content you have seen yesterday, you maybe not don't remember, but if I may ask you like which is the one reel or which is the one content you have consumed that help you to impact in your life, it might be regarding your personal growth, it might be regarding your
Mhm.
health somewhere, but you feel you are going to say like, okay, I watched this one video at that point of time and that make this impact in my life.
Yep. And then they follow you because they want to connect with you for longer.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
about like building that connection and chiseling away at that
that's the game.
relationship time, collapsing that relationship time down to where they buy. So yeah, I think that's important, and that's where my free community does come in, because what I'm doing is I'm teaching stuff like what I just shared,
Yeah.
and more. And
Hmm.
the way I'm doing it, the reason why I'm doing it as a free community is because I'm moving back to Thailand in at the end of September. I've got like
Oh,
6 weeks left, so
yes.
I've got to pack.
Tell me that.
I've got to pack, and I've got all these projects. Like we're driving down to South Carolina. We leave Saturday to go film a ton of reels and content for a tattoo shop. And then I
Hmm.
have my client Ned, a financial planner. I got to go to Atlanta and do that. So on top of packing and moving, I've got to work with all these clients. So
Hmm.
what I decided to do is Alex Hermosi announced the school speedrunners, which he's going to coach 100 people for free. And I was like, I want to do that. Like I want the chance to work with Hermosi and get his
Hmm.
input. So I was like, I'm just gonna make my school community free. And rather than selling like some coaching program where I teach you how to do content right now, because I just don't have the time, I'll just invite a
Hmm.
bunch of people in for free and then teach them everything that I know about content as I'm working on these live projects. So that's kind of what my thing is. And then my goal is in another 2 to 3 months, probably do some kind of content challenge where I say, look, I'm going to sell you something. I'll work with you. I'll do, both ideation with you and accountability, because I think those are the two places that people struggle the most. And
Yeah.
then just do a group coaching thing with that. But right now, I'm just like, let me just fill my community with free shit and give them value. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Going to getting
that's my pitch.
direction.
I just snuck it
Yeah, yeah.
on the podcast.
I know, I got this. I did totally got it. But that's interesting. Like getting idea from Alex Summers itself. Like that's interesting. So time has its own limit. But before we wrap up the show, one last thing, if we can go with. So if there's a one piece of advice that if you can give to someone who is trying to make money online or who is
Hmm.
growing in this industry as a beginner or just starting their journey, so what kind of one piece of advice you have for those people? who's trying to figuring out to make money online, who's just starting their journey in this online business?
Yeah, so get a skill that people need if you don't already have one. And if you don't already have the skill, get the skill while getting proof. I mean, to me, that's it. That's the biggest thing that people miss out is they skip that step. Everybody wants to figure out like, what's the one sentence I could say to trick people into buying? And I got a friend who comes to me all the time, and he's like, he's such a good salesman. He's like, dude, I could sell ice to an Eskimo, and I'm like, why would you want to do that? Just sell them heat. Like they need heat. They don't need ice. They're in Alaska, so it's like, actually get the skill that you need to get. If you don't have the skill, that's okay. No one just has the skill, but chances are you have some kind of inclination of something. Figure out. It's so much easier, in my opinion, to sell a 5-figure product than it is to sell, $100 product. But it has to be the right conversation with the right person. And when you're talking to that right person, it's so much easier. Much like when I said in the beginning, it was really hard to sell recording services to people, even if I was $200 a song when I started out, because that was their only $200. I sold the $6,300 website to the guy in 10 minutes because the $6,300 wasn't 100% of his net worth. It was, a very, very, very small sliver, and he needed a problem solved, and I had a skill that I could use to solve that for him. Now, what I have done was when I first moved to Thailand, I drank the marketing Kool-Aid because I wanted to be, the next marketer. I wanted to teach people how to make money. And then I looked around and I went, huh, I'm broke. I shouldn't teach anyone how to make money. Like, so let me go figure out how to make money. And that's when I started doing remote agency services. And I did that for years until I could competently, do these things, do SEO, do websites, do ads, and all that stuff. If I could go back in time and if I was just getting started, I'd pick one niche, one audience, one offer, and just nail that skill and then sell that to the right person. And I think if I can give future advice for them where they're going to end up in probably 3 to 6 months, is they're going to see a new opportunity and want to jump. And that's not what you should do. You should put in the time in the first skill to do that. You will constantly see things that you want to move from thing to thing from, and it has worked for me. So like I have, added another skill and added another thing onto the agency and added another. But what I didn't do was I didn't go, you know what? Bitcoin's real big right now and day trading. Like, I think I'm going to stop learning about this Facebook ads thing and go learn about that. Instead, what I did was I naturally progressed. Like, well, I know websites, so now I need SEO. Ads, they want more traffic. Let me do ads. Well, I should probably learn video because video makes ads better. So like, you kind of want to keep going. It doesn't hurt to learn more skills, but what you don't want to do is abandon ship on a business that has the potential to work because you get bored of it or you want to see the next thing.
That sense makes sense. That
Yeah.
100% makes sense.
Yep. And work for free to get the store. Like, if you need the proof, work for free. Like, it's amazing what you can do to go up to a business owner and say, hey, I'm driven and I really want to learn Facebook ads, say that, or Reels, whatever. Let me work for you for free. The only thing that I'm going to ask is, could you possibly help me, with my education or something? I want to get this course or something. People will even do that. And you don't even have to do that. If you just buy the course yourself, which you should anyway, whatever you want to learn, just go find the person who wants the thing for free and make sure that they're willing, and just say, look, this is the amount of time I need from you to do this. I want to do all the work myself, but let's say you're going to offer them Reels. I need you for a half hour for a pre-interview so I can script out some ideas. And then I need you to review it for a half hour. And then I'm going to come film you for 3 hours. And I'm going to do it totally for free. And I'm going to edit it. And then in the end, I just want the case study of like, what happened after and then the case study part is the easiest part. Like, you want to talk about not having to brag about yourself, just ask your customers who you've helped, like what they think. They'll say the nicest things that you can't even script it. Like, I did SEO for a solar company, and I asked him, I said, so, where were you at when you started with me? Well, I was working in a shed and I wasn't making a lot of money and we were just getting started, but I was driven and I could tell that you were too. And we just kept going. All right. So like, then what happened? Well, now the company is, I forget, it's not 10 million. It's somewhere under, it's some multiple of millions. And I grew the company to X million, and it's been 2 years and it's been amazing. And I said, and how has your life changed since working with me? And he looks in the camera, dead in the camera, and I'll say F instead of the word he said. And he goes, ever since working with Tom, I can have steak whenever the F I want. He's like, I'm talking big old beef. I can afford to. I went from ramen to steak, and I'm like, I'm laughing. I was like, oh, I could have never even told him to say that. And he brags about like all the stuff that we did to his website that brought him traffic, that grew his business. And then I'm just like, hey, like if someone was on the fence about working with me, what would you tell them? And then he convinces them. I run an ad with that. I don't have to do any selling. I didn't say anything. All I did is ask 3 questions. Where were you? Where are you now? What would you say to someone who wanted to work with me? It's really just that simple. But if you don't get those case studies, and if you don't get those skills and that proof, then you are going to be trying to jump through hoops to figure out the perfect sentence to trick somebody into paying you, and the perfect copywriting tricks, when all you really need to do is just become a badass at what you do and prove it. That's it. So
become a badass at what you do and prove it. That's a great line.
that's it.
Because you,
All right, that's the principle. In fact, I'm going to write it down and getting that on a t-shirt.
yeah, super. So thank you so much, Tom, for being on the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show. It's really nice talking to you, and you share a lot of nuggets, man. That's a really crazy stuff. I think that's a unique podcast that we have today, where we discuss so many things regarding funny ads, regarding content, regarding mindset, and all sort of things. So thank you so much once again for being on the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show, and I hope you had a great time with me on
I
my
did.
podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So people who is watching this podcast till now, make sure you start following Tom, join his school community. I'm going to drop all the link in the description below of this video or in the show notes. And what is the one action step that you are going to take from this podcast instead of jumping from this podcast to another? What is the one action step you are going to take in your life that can help you to move ahead from your current stage to your next stage in your life? So till then, Nilesh and Tom is signing off from the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show, and I'll be back with another amazing, powerful podcast on my podcast. Have a great day.